There are places on the road that you drive through, and then there are places you drive into. Truck stops fall into that second kind. From the highway, they're just another cluster of lights in the dark. A few tall signs, a glow on the horizon. But the moment you turn off the interstate and roll down the ramp, you don't just change roads, you change worlds. That was the kind of night this was. The kind where the sky felt too big, the miles felt too long, and the warm promise of a truck stop up ahead felt less like a fuel stop and more like a small temporary home. I'd been running steady for hours, engine humming in that low, content way, dashed washed in amber. The radio turned down so low it was more memory than music. Out the windshield, the interstate stretched in a gray ribbon under my headlights, broken only by the glow of distant towns and the occasional pair of taillights fading into the horizon. Then I saw it, a tall sign rising out of the dark, gas prices in glowing digits, logo I'd seen in 100 states. Underneath, smaller letters, the ones that really mattered tonight. Showers, food, 24 hours, truck parking. I flipped on my blinker, watched it tick on the dash like a metronome, and eased the truck off the endless main line toward that island of noise and light and human life. The ramp curved gently, concrete giving way to patched asphalt, and then the truck stop opened up in front of me, a wide, bright bowl of light in the middle of a huge dark field. Fuel Island canopies glowed white, their edges yellow, like low moons hung on metal poles. Beyond them spread row after row of parked trucks, stacked side by side like sleeping beasts, their marker lights blinking faint red and amber in the night. Some idled low and steady, some sat silent and dark, each one carrying a story that had been paused here for a few hours. I rolled through the lot slow, windows cracked just enough to let the air in. It smelled like hot diesel, cold air, spilled coffee, and the sharp, clean hint of soap from the shower exhaust fans. Somewhere a reefer unit clacked on. One rig down the row popped a small air leak followed by a soft hiss. And above it all drifted a faint, warm murmur of voices. This was it, the floating city of the highway, the place where the road held its breath for a while, so drivers could be people again. I found a spot 3 rows back, between a flatbed loaded with tarped steel and a white box trailer that still wore the dust of 3 different states. The lot was mostly full, but not jammed. The comfortable middle ground where you know you'll have neighbors, but aren't squeezed so tight you can hear them breathe. I straightened out, backed in slow, watched the yellow line slide into place in my mirrors, until the trailer settled just right between them. Brakes set, engine idled down, and then that familiar small silence when you turn the key, and the world outside the cab suddenly becomes louder than the one inside. Out there, the truck stop was alive but not frantic. Engines idling at different pitches, air dryers purging with sharp, regular bursts. A radio playing country way off to my left. Someone laughing near the fuel island. The clatter of a dropped chain on a flatbed a few spots over. The lights painted everything in layers. White from the canopies over the pumps. Soft gold from the building windows. Red and amber marker lights tracing the outlines of trucks in every direction. Up above it all, the sky still held a few stubborn stars, refusing to be completely erased by the neon haze below. I cut the headlights, sat for a second in the relative dark, and just watched as a tanker eased past the end of the row, its stainless steel side catching stripes of light like slow lightning. watched as a driver in a hoodie and ball cap walked across the lot, plastic shower bags swinging in his hand. This, I thought, is where the road comes to rest. Not in cities or towns, not in driveways or garages, but here, in this odd little world built just for people who carry their lives with them in trailers. I climbed down from the cab, boots hitting the pavement with a soft thunk. The ground was solid, comforting after hours of motion. The air felt cooler than it had on the highway, maybe from the open space, maybe from so many engines breathing in and out. From here, the fuel island was a whole scene of its own. Trucks nose in under the bright canopy, hoses slung from pump to tank. Diesel smell sharp and oddly reassuring. Deck lights glowed along frames. Reflective tape turned every edge into a bright white line. Near the entrance, a group of drivers stood in a loose half circle, talking with that easy mixture of accents you only find at truck stops. Southern drawls, Midwestern flats, a hint of East Coast, all smoothed together by shared miles. The building itself glowed warm and yellow, glass doors sliding open and closed, letting out bursts of sound and smell. Coffee, fryer oil, bacon, the whoosh of HVAC. Someone calling out a food order number. I took a breath, deep and full. The tension of the highway began to melt from my shoulders. Whatever waited inside, showers, noise, junk food, stories, would all be part of that soft middle of the night, where the job paused, but the road kept humming just outside the windows. Truck stops aren't beautiful in any postcard sense, but there's a kind of beauty in their purpose. A place built entirely around the idea that people who never stay put still need somewhere to belong for a few hours. And tonight, this was my somewhere. Walking toward the building, I could feel the change with each step, from the cool, open air of the lot, into the warm, buzzing little universe that lived behind the glass doors. They slid open with a soft hiss, and suddenly I was wrapped in light, sound, and smell. Coffee, hot dogs rolling on metal bars, detergent from the laundry room, a hint of citrus cleaner on recently mopped tiles. Right inside, the front counter was its own kind of stage. A clerk in a company polo scanned snacks and drinks, hands moving quick but not rushed, trading small jokes with drivers who knew him by name. Behind him, a wall of cigarettes and energy drinks made a bright, busy backdrop. To the right, racks held everything a driver might need or think they need. Bungee cords, CB mics, logbook covers, tiny chrome hubcaps for valve stems, CDs no one had bought in 10 years, but that somehow never went away. One aisle over, a man in a faded jacket stood staring too long at a row of beef jerky, like he was thinking about something far away. He picked a bag eventually, nodded to me, a small acknowledgement in the unofficial language of the road. Off to the left, the fast food counter glowed with menu boards and heat lamps. 3 drivers waited for their orders, tracing lazy patterns on their phones, eyes half closed with the peculiar tiredness that comes more from watching the road than from physical work. Beyond that was the real heart of the truck stop, the driver's section. A sign on the wall pointed the way. Showers, lounge, laundry, driver services. I followed it like a homing instinct. The hallway to the showers was lined with doors, each with a small number and a red or green light, showing whether it was free. Somewhere down that hall, a shower fan hummed steadily, and muted water sounds echoed behind thick doors. Drivers waited on plastic chairs, holding towels and small bags with soap and clean shirts. No one said much. It was a quiet cue built on understanding that when you've been alone in a cab all day, sometimes company means simply being near other people, not talking to them. The driver's lounge was dimmer than the main store. Lights softer, color warmer. A big TV on the wall played a weather channel on mute. Closed captions crawling slowly along the bottom. About rain somewhere 3 states away. Couches and armchairs sat scattered around the room. Brown leather and patterned fabric. Some a little sagged in the middle from 1,000 naps. A pair of drivers occupied opposite ends of one long couch. Both half reclined. One scrolling his phone. The other staring at nothing with that far-off look of someone replaying the last 100 miles in his mind. A coffee pot gurgled on a side table. Beside it, a microwave waited, door slightly ajar. A plastic fork resting beside a stack of paper plates. Someone's lunch bag sat unattended on a chair. The universal sign of, "I'll be back. This is my spot for now." In one corner, a man in a flannel shirt and beanie talked quietly with a woman in a high-visibility vest. Their hands moved in small arcs as they spoke, the kind of conversation that sounded, from a distance, like swapping stories about loads, dispatchers, weather, and the million tiny details that tie drivers together. I took a seat where I could see the TV and the doorway. Habit. You get used to watching entrances when you live on the road. Not out of fear, just awareness. Who's coming? Who's going? Who looks like they need a word? Who looks like they need to be left alone? After a few minutes, a man dropped into the chair across from me with a sigh. That sounded like air brakes on a cold morning. His hat read, "Owner-operator," in faded letters, and his hands bore 1,000 little scars of chrome, steel, and chain. "Long day?" I asked. "A gentle opener." "Aren't they all?" he replied. But there was a smile at the edge of it. "Chicago to here with a reefer." Dispatcher swore it'd be easy. "Snow in the forecast tomorrow." "Easy, my foot." We traded the basics. "Where you coming from? Where you headed? How's the freight? What's the road like ahead?" The standard script, but under it always something genuine. A quick measure of character in a few sentences. He told me about his first time out, 20 years ago on this very truck stop chain, sleeping in a day cab because he didn't know better yet. About the old guy who'd shown him how to slide tandems properly in the lot, instead of waiting to get yelled at by a scale. "That's what I like about these places," he said, nodding toward the window where you could see rows of parked trucks. "Doesn't matter who you are, company, O/O, new old. If you're here, you're one of us for a few hours." He was called for his shower then. Number flashed on the small screen near the hallway. He stood, stretched, tipped his hat. "Get some rest, driver," he said. "The road's long tomorrow, too." Back outside, the night felt thicker but softer. The truck stop had settled into that deep, late-hour rhythm. Not busy, not empty, just steady. Some trucks had gone dark, their occupants asleep behind drawn curtains. Others still idled, exhaust plumes barely visible in the cool air, marker lights twinkling like grounded constellations. A driver sat on his step smoking, hoodie pulled up, eyes half on his phone and half on the world. 2 others walked past him, talking in Spanish about a receiver in the morning, laughing softly at something only they understood. Near the far row, a couple of drivers had their hoods open. One leaned on the bumper. The other peered at something with a flashlight, voices low and calm. Not emergency, just curiosity. That sound wasn't there yesterday, was it? In one corner of the lot, a smaller straight truck had curtains pulled back and a dim yellow reading lamp on inside. Through the glass, I saw a driver at a tiny table, pen in hand, writing in a notebook instead of on a screen. He looked peaceful. By the fuel island, a driver in coveralls sprayed off his windshield with a long-handled brush, moving slowly, methodically, like someone washing off more than just bugs and dust. Each swipe drew a line from one long day into the next. The PA system crackled occasionally with pump numbers and lane calls. A portable radio near the maintenance shed played old rock songs, the volume just loud enough that bits of the chorus drifted by whenever the wind shifted. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic in a Hollywood way, just dozens of small lives, pausing, intersecting, resting side by side for a little while, before scattering again in the morning. That's the strange comfort of a truck stop at night. You might not talk to most of the people there, but you feel their presence. You know that for these few hours, you're all in the same boat, far from home, but not alone. Eventually, the weight of the day settled fully into my shoulders. My eyelids felt heavy in that pleasant way that says you've squeezed all the useful hours out of the day, and there's nothing left to do but rest. I climbed back into the cab, closing the door on the hum of the lot. Instantly, the sound softened. Engines became a low backdrop. Voices turned into a muffled murmur. Lights outside cut down to glows and glints. The cab light clicked on with a familiar warm yellow. My small world shrank again to what was right around me. Seat, wheel, curtains, the little shelf with my coffee mug, the faint smell of my own laundry soap from a duffel in the corner. I keyed off the ignition. The last rumble of the engine faded, leaving only a gentle creak as the frame relaxed, and the soft ticking of cooling metal under the floor. For a moment I just sat there, hands loose on my knees, breathing in the quiet. Somewhere out there in the lot, air dryers still purged, a reefer cycled on. Someone laughed near the building, but in here, it was just me and the steady backdrop of life. The kind of noise that makes it easier to fall asleep, not harder. I pulled the sleeper curtain closed 2/3 of the way. Enough privacy, but still a thin strip of light from the dash, and a faint trace of outside glow, to keep the dark from feeling absolute. Lying down, I felt the day leave my bones inch by inch. The mattress had the familiar dips and support of a place your body knows by heart. The pillow smelled faintly of detergent and road, a mix that somehow always meant home for tonight. Truck stops aren't homes. Not really. But for people who live on the move, they're the next best thing. A kind of shared, rotating living room for a roaming community. Out there, behind 100 curtains, drivers settled into their own mattresses and pillows. Some watching a show, some on the phone with someone they loved, some staring at the ceiling the way I was, letting the mind slow down lap by lap. As I closed my eyes, the day played back not in sharp moments, but in soft impressions. The neon of the cafe sign, the tired smile of the clerk, the old photos on the wall, the slow drift of headlights across parked trucks. The truck stop breathed around me, a low, constant exhale of machines and people, a lullaby of idling engines, distant laughter, and the promise that for a few hours, nothing was required of me but rest. My last clear thought was simple, and heavier than it sounded. Out here, no matter how far the haul, no matter how wide the country feels, there's always a place, somewhere, where the lights are on, the coffee is hot, and the lot is open, waiting to hold you until morning. With that, my breathing matched the deep, slow rhythm of the trucks outside. and I drifted down into sleep, cradled not just by my own rig, but by the quiet, shared heartbeat of a truck stop at night. Even with my curtain half closed, sleep didn't grab me right away. There's a certain kind of restlessness that lingers after a long run, not in the body, but in the thoughts that still feel like they're moving at highway speed. So I sat back up, pulled the curtain open a touch more, and just watched the lot through the windshield. Out there, the truck stop was quietly alive in a way I never got tired of studying. A bobtail eased in and slid into a spot near the end of the row, its headlights sweeping briefly across my dash like a soft wave of daylight in miniature. The driver shut it down, climbed out, and stretched the way every driver stretches after too many hours. Folded into the same shape, near the fuel island, a car with out-of-state plates idled uncertainly, its driver looking around at the sea of trucks, like he'd stumbled into a world that wasn't quite his, but was curious about it anyway. A woman in a reflective jacket walked back from the building, hair still damp from a shower, plastic bag of snacks in one hand, keys jingling softly in the other. She moved with that easy, steady stride that says, "This isn't new to me. This is just my Tuesday." Farther down the row, I saw the bluish flicker of a TV inside someone's cab, shifting against the curtains. In another truck, only a small, warm reading light glowed in the upper bunk, like someone had fallen asleep mid-chapter with a paperback in their hand. Little by little, the truck stop showed its small rituals. The driver who always wipes down his mirrors and headlights before he goes inside, no matter how tired he is. The one who sits on his step to make a phone call, voice low and soft, words meant for someone many miles away. A guy in basketball shorts and flip-flops carried a laundry basket from the building back to his truck, fresh clothes folded neatly on top. You could almost smell the clean cotton from where I sat, cutting through the diesel tang of the lot. Nothing dramatic, nothing the world would care about on a big scale. But in this small, temporary city, these were the threads that held everything together. Private little habits shared in a public space. Watching it all, I felt that familiar, quiet truth settle in. Out here, we live separate lives moving in parallel. But for a few hours in places like this, those lines run close enough to feel each other's warmth. I decided I wasn't quite finished with the night yet. Sleep could wait a little longer. Sometimes, the best stories at a truck stop show up after midnight, when the world outside is even quieter. I climbed down again, hands instinctively brushing the grab handles, like I'd done 1,000 times. The air was cooler now, edges soft, smelling faintly of rain that might or might not come. Inside, the store was calmer too. Fewer people at the registers, less shuffle, more slow, meandering movement. The harshness of the fluorescent lights felt softer somehow, against the tired faces of the people beneath them. Near the coffee station, a younger driver was talking with an older woman in a company jacket, her ID badge on a lanyard, clipboard in hand. From the bits I caught, she was a safety rep on the road, doing check-ins, answering questions, trying to catch small problems before they became big ones. "You call me if dispatch gives you a hard time about that reset," she was saying. "This job's hard enough without folks forgetting you need hours to be human." The kid, he couldn't have been more than 25, nodded in that quiet, grateful way people do when someone older actually listens instead of just telling. At a nearby table, two drivers sat with their logbooks open, notebooks and phones scattered between them. One talked about fuel prices, shaking his head in mock despair. The other about a customer who always held them too long at the dock, but at least bought decent coffee. Their conversation drifted over me like background music, familiar chords in a familiar key. Nothing earth-shattering, just the daily gospel of the road, being preached in low voices over styrofoam cups. I saw a maintenance guy come in through a side door, reflective vest half undone, grease smudges on his sleeves. He didn't head for the snacks first. He went straight for the cooler, grabbed a cold bottle of water, and downed half of it before he blinked. People forget about those guys, the ones in the coveralls, working in the shadows of bay doors and under trucks at 3 a.m. When we sleep, they crawl under the machines that carry our lives and make sure they can keep carrying them tomorrow. As I waited in line to pay for a fresh cup of coffee and a sandwich I probably didn't need, I watched the clerk scan items with one hand and hand back change with the other, never missing a beat. "Long night?" he asked me, more as a ritual than a question. "Long day," I said. "This is the good part of it." He grinned. "Yeah, this is the part where it stops being miles and starts being stories." I liked that so much I almost wrote it down. Back in the lot, the shape of the night had changed again. Some of the trucks that had been idling were now dark, their drivers finally giving in to the pull of sleep. Others had come and gone while I was inside, their brief stay nothing more than a few tire marks and a hint of exhaust left behind. I sipped my coffee slowly, leaning against the side of my truck, feeling the cool metal at my back, and the gentle buzz of the engine block still holding the memory of earlier heat. A refrigerated trailer a few spots down kicked its unit into a louder cycle. For a second it dominated the lot sound, then faded back into the blend. It was like a deep inhalation and exhalation from the row, the sound of freight staying at the right temperature, while its keeper slept. Across from me, a driver climbed back into his rig with the slow, careful motions of someone who's already half asleep. He pulled the door shut gently, lights inside flickering once, then dimming as the curtain slid closed. Little by little, the lot turned inward. Conversations trailed off. The radio near the garage was switched off. One by one, small islands of light inside cabs winked out. It reminded me of a dormitory of giants, each truck a huge metal body, each cab a small warm heart inside it, all of them deciding at different moments that the night had been enough. I finished the last of the coffee, feeling its warmth settle comfortably in my chest. No jitter, no rush, just a gentle heaviness in my eyelids and a looseness in my shoulders. Climbing back up into the cab, I paused for a second on the step and looked out over the rows of parked rigs. Different colors, different logos, different ages and shapes. But underneath all that, the same purpose. All of us had dragged the day's loads to this little square of pavement. All of us would scatter again with the sunrise, heading in 50 directions, following maps and dispatch messages and gut feeling. But right now, just for this stretch of quiet hours, we were in the same place, sharing the same lot, the same air, the same low, steady hum of being off duty, even if only for a short while. There's something deeply human about that, even if most of it passes without comment. We might sleep with our doors locked and our curtains pulled, but somewhere in the back of the mind, it helps to know the other trucks are there, like neighbors whose names you don't need to know, to appreciate their presence. I settled back into the sleeper, the mattress welcoming me like a familiar wave. This time, sleep didn't hesitate. Outside, the truck stop continued its slow breathing, a low, constant murmur of engines and air and distant highway noise. Inside, my thoughts shortened to fragments. Yellow lights, neon signs, the safety rep's patient voice, the old photos on the diner wall. Then even those let go. The last thing I felt before I drifted completely was that rare and quiet sense of being held. Not by a person, not by a house, but by a place designed for people who never stay anywhere long, yet still sometimes need, just for a night, to feel like they've come home. That's where my story ends tonight. If you'd like to hear more from the road, hit subscribe and rest easy, my friend.